Mark, thank you for visiting ERCT, and I'm very proud that you are here and presenting the new product line. And yesterday, when we were eating at dinner, you were telling me a story about your journey. You are the inventor of high-end audio. You introduced it in the market. And after a few years working with different people, you bounced against a problem. Not really your problem, but someone had a problem. And that made you think. Can you tell a little bit about how that happened, so that people understand why you had to bring something new for the digital market?
Well, one of my customers in the 1970s was a medical doctor and psychiatrist who was developing very advanced therapies with music, actually treating people who were extremely ill. He had a preamplifier that we made. I think we started making preamplifiers in 1974, and this was 1978. And one day he called me and he said, "Can you come over? I've got a problem." So I went over to his house and he said, "I've been using this LP in my therapy for years, and it helps people. It's very positive energy, but I needed a new copy, so I got this one. It looks the same, but it has reverse effects. It doesn't help people, it hurts people. I don't know why." And all we could find out was that on the new copy, it said digitally mastered. Oops. Then later, he found the same problem with DAT, digital audio tape, and then the CD when they came out, and so forth. And he realized that digital audio had problems. Not just the sound, but there was something physiological there. And I realized that there was a connection between the sound of digital audio and human health, right? This is early on, this is a long time ago. Digital audio was introduced in the 1970s. Sony said it was perfect, right? The CD was perfect, remember? But a lot of people didn't agree with that. But there was this huge wave of publicity. Oh, the CD is perfect, right? So people threw out their record collections, and record companies threw out their analog master tapes, and remember all that. But a lot of people were not convinced. It wasn't the same. Something was not right. I asked this doctor if he would help me. He said, "Would you help me find the problem?" And he said, "Well, I'll help you on one condition. If you can't fix it, you'll get out of audio." I said, "Oh, okay. Why do you say that?" "Well," he said, "if you're the kind of person who knows that something makes people sick and you'll sell it to them anyway just to get the money, you're not somebody I want to help." I said, "Good point. Okay, I agree." Well, it took me a lot longer than I expected. And it required a lot of money, a lot of investment. But I finally fulfilled my promise to him. Although he died a few years ago in his late 80s, it was a commitment. And because I think he's right. Why would I want to sell products to people if I know they're not good for them? And this is the real problem with digital audio. It's not just the sound. Whatever you say about the sound, you like it, you don't like it, that's what you think. But there's something deeper going on, and that's the basis of our work developing C-Wave technology, and it's the basis of the patent. We have a patent from the US Patent Office based on making digital audio better for human health.
So you told me that getting a patent is not easy. You have to prove quite a lot.
That's right.
So you showed me the white paper. And in that white paper, you had proven by very sophisticated machines that our brain reacts on analog and digital. What did you discover?
We found that the brain likes continuous waveforms. In nature, sound is based on continuous waveforms, right?
Yep.
But PCM digital audio is not a continuous waveform. It's a non-continuous waveform. And the brain feels something like da 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 da. It's stressful. It creates a stress response. And this can be measured consistently and repeatedly with everyone. It's not, I think this, you think that. That's subjective.
Yeah.
These are objective tests.
Yeah.
And these objective tests are the basis of the patent.
So what we thought that digital and analogs makes no hearing, of a difference in hearing, you have proven wrong. That is what you're saying.
Well, first of all, what we're saying is there's subjective and objective.
Yeah.
Subjective is, this is what I hear, this is what I feel.
Yeah.
Anybody can say that, it's okay. But we're saying there's an objective reality, which is different. It's not what you think, it just is,
Yeah.
okay? And the problem is that PCM digital audio creates a stress response in the brain, which is not subjective, it's just a fact. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that stress stops emotion and stress lowers the immune system. These are not good. First of all, music is not sound, music is emotion, right? If it's just sound, it's noise, right? You have to feel something. And stress stops emotion. That's a fact, well known. If you're making love and the phone rings, interferes. So people have for years talked about digital audio as it's electronic, it's analytical, it's cold, it's, where's that come from? Well, if stress stops emotion, you would think, well, maybe that's a way of talking about it. It's analytical, it's cold, it's electronic, it's something, right? They say analog is warm.
Yeah, more engaging. Yeah.
Whoa, warm, huh? Yeah. Okay. So that whole thing, warm, cold. Other people complain about headaches. Mastering engineers said, with analog, I could work all day. With PCM digital, after an hour, I get a headache. It's hard to work with digital, and so forth and so on. This is not one person. This is just about everyone that's working with audio in a professional capacity, and a lot of people who are just listening at home have not been happy. And now we can show that there's good reasons why they weren't happy.
Yeah.
And the main thing is this: we now have an opportunity to make things better, right?
Yeah.
Finally, we can explain, measure, and fix this.
Yeah. And it fixes is in this machine,
Right.
the Maria.
The Maria is the first device on the market with C-Wave embedded, and it processes all signals on the fly. So everything, music files, streaming, internet, any audio signal, movie soundtracks. But
Because you told me the C-Wave technology could be implemented in many ways, in telephones, in recording products, etc., etc. So it has a lot of possibilities
Right.
to increase our enjoyment in sound again. And that is what you wanted to achieve, I think.
Right. Well, there's two different things. One is enjoyment.
Yeah.
And actually, music is more than enjoyment. Music, at the deepest level, is about healing, upliftment. It's more than entertainment. The doctor I mentioned was using recordings of music as therapy, and then he developed live music therapy, where a person played an instrument, learned to play an instrument as therapy. It's all about life energy and vibration. This is very deep stuff. And this is not just about enjoyment. But there's a lot of audio in the world beyond that. For example, mobile telephones, television, YouTube, talking on WhatsApp or Skype. I mean, all this digital audio that's out there, it's a big deal.
But there is a risk. I have young children, So when they have no tiredness of listening, they will listen the whole day to YouTube movies and whatever. So
well,
that's the side effect of it.
Well, that has to be studied. There's reason to believe that there are effects caused by PCM digital audio that we don't know about because they've never really been studied.
No.
Nobody ever looked at audio from a health perspective.
No.
And that's what Daniel Hertz is doing. Okay, we're the first company that's looking at audio from the point of view of wellness and human health. So the idea is that we did tests under 3 conditions. Okay, we had people in the same room at the same time, and we tested them with no music at all. Okay, then we tested them listening to digital, and we tested them listening to a C-wave processed digital track. Now here's the interesting thing. Without any music at all, people tested, a sort of, they were okay. They weren't perfect health, but they were more or less okay. All of them, as soon as they started listening to a digital track, their measurements were terrible, much worse. Listening to PCM digital audio was severely detrimental to their bodily functioning. Yeah. I mean, they're just all across the board. And when they listen to a C-wave, same track, same volume, same device, same everything, same room, everything the same, C-wave process track, they measured stronger and healthier than with no music.
Yeah.
It means that listening to music can be strengthening and improve your health, actually improve the way that you function physiologically. That's fantastic, right? Now, the problem is that measurements are important, right? Now in audio, there are measurements that people respect. Frequency response, that's real. Total harmonic distortion, intermodulation distortion, and so forth and so on. These are measurements that define the listening experience, right? If a speaker is 3 dB higher than another one at 5 kilohertz, it'll sound brighter. I mean, it's a standard, okay? So they're measurements. But until now, we didn't have any measurements that defined
how we respond
to digital audio. Why? Because it's not an audio problem. It's a brain problem. It's the way the brain responds to the non-continuous waveform that's the problem, right? So how can you measure that with audio test equipment? That's not the problem.
No.
For flat frequency response, low distortion, no noise, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but that's, you look, we say you're barking up the wrong tree. So you had to look at how the brain responds, and that's what these tests enable us to do. And then everybody measures the same. Everyone, it's just across the board. And that's the basis of the patent. But what's really important is that this is available. I mean, basically, Daniel Hertz has 2 parts. One, we are an audio equipment manufacturer. That's true. But we are an audio tech company. What do I mean by that? Intel makes processors. NVIDIA makes computer graphics. Who makes the audio? Where is it? The whole audio world is running on 1960s, 1970s technology. C-Wave is the first fundamental upgrade to digital audio since it was introduced in the 1970s. Where's the new audio? That's what Daniel Hertz has been working on for many, many years with a huge investment of time and money. Because without that new technology, you're just going to go round and round and round. You got supermarket pasta. Maybe one box is built this way, one box is built that way, one is heavier, one puts out more heat, one is this color or that. But what's inside is pretty much the same stuff.
Same technology.
And we're talking about developing new semiconductors, firmware, software, electronic architecture, and speakers, which are the basis of a new kind of audio.
And what's in this box looks like an amplifier, what existing already quite long, but the technology inside the box is revolutionary new. That's what we can say.
Right, and it changes the assumptions of the industry. Example, somebody comes to a store and says, I want a great system. What do I have to get? And you say, well, you'll need a DA converter, one of those, and you'll need a preamplifier, one of those, and a power amplifier, one of those, and some cables, some of those, and, right? And then we're gonna create the system for you. Well, here is one box that performs the functions of the DAC, the preamp, the power amp, and the interconnect cables without the cables in one box, right? For a lot less money than that combination of stuff that you might be buying.
And if we talk about money, we know that high-end stuff becomes very expensive. We cannot say that this is cheap, but it is not as expensive as really high-end products, but we can say it perform on the same level or maybe even higher. So that is, of course, so you can say you have to hear it to believe it. So we have to invite everyone who wants to hear it. But for me, the fundamental question is, you're so long in the industry, and I told you this before, and for me that is the drive you have. And I am now, I think, 2 days to you, and a lot of younger people will, but you are going and going. And I think this passion you have, you see back in everything you are making. You can hear it, and you can help people with to enjoy music on a better, healthy level, to get products in other type of, not audio orientated, but what we discussed before, phones, televisions, whatever, to improve life. And yeah, I think that is wonderful. And the only question we can say is why? Why you are so driven to do this? Because you can say, well, I give this or I stop because whatever, but you are driven. So tell me, what is your spirit in this?
If you have children, you love your children, right?
Yeah.
And you'll do whatever you can to protect them, to keep them safe, and to make sure they have a good life as far as you can, right? And that's coming from love, because you love them. You don't do that for people you don't love. It comes from your heart. And I believe that love of music is universal. You find it in every culture, all over the world. Steve Jobs saved Apple with love of music, with the iPod and the iTunes, you know, rescued Apple from nothing to 300 a share. I'm a musician at heart, you know. I'm not really an engineer or an executive. I'm really a musician, and my interest is to make some contribution to music. What I see today is most people, when they say, I listen to music, what they really mean is I listen to recordings of music coming from speakers, right? They don't actually hear people play that much. Most people, they're listening to music in reproduced form. So that's a really new thing. I mean, 100 years ago, that wasn't very common, right? And 150 years ago, it didn't exist. So, you know, it's new. And musicians depend on music reproduction to get their music to people. That's how it, you know, and my interest is that people can feel what the musicians intended, you know, that what the musicians did arrives to the listener in that form, you know, so that you can feel it and make the connection. I guess I like to say we want to make sure that we connect the soul of the musician to the soul of the listener in the best way. That's pretty much it. And in the end, it really isn't the performance or the price of a product that makes it worth something. It's how it makes you feel. You know, if you feel uplifted, if you feel enjoyment and some fulfillment from that, it doesn't matter if it's a little speaker this big or a big system. It's not important. Let's make a comparison to musical instruments, because that's really what I'm familiar with. There's a place for all kinds of instruments, okay? Let's say you play the guitar, and you start out with some factory-made guitar, and after a while, oh, gee, that's a really nice guitar. I think I would like that one. And then you discover, wow, there's a lot of different instruments out there. And you discover that there's a world of handmade guitars, which are really fantastic. And then one day you find one that you say, oh, that's it. That's the one I really want, okay? And you get that guitar. That's it. Then that's the guitar that fulfills your musical vision. And it's made by somebody. It's not from a big factory, right? It's made by some artisan who makes a few a year or whatever they make, and then you get one and you love it because of what it means musically to you. And I like making audio products like that have that kind of soul. And that's why I want to keep Daniel Hertz very small, dedicated, a little boutique company. I do not want a big company. I'd rather license technology to other companies that maybe want to
make it bigger.
Make it bigger, and that's fine if help make better audio for the world. But that's not what I want to do. I like the world of artisans making a small quantity of products by hand at the highest level of quality. That's just what I enjoy, and that's what we're making now. And there's a place for everything. Just like with instruments, there's a place for those handmade artisan instruments, but not everybody can have them. So, so it's basically the same thing.
You told me during your visit about a very famous guitar player, maybe you know who I'm talking about, in a recording studio, about playing guitar, and he had bought a special guitar and with special strings on it. And when you record on it, because you do also recordings, he said, this is how I liked it. That's the reason I bought this guitar. The sound, the reproduction of that music came completely alive after the recording, when you showed him the recording. So what you're saying is you want also to touch the musician who did the recording, that it is as it meant to be.
Right. The world of music reproduction has three parts. The first part is the live performance, the musicians who make the music, right? That's one part. Next part is the recording process that makes something we call media, some recording, whether it's a disc or a file or an LP or something, right? That's the recording. And then there's the playback, right? The playback equipment. And they're all important, but they're very different. And there's a place for different kinds of products. I don't want to say that they should all be one way or another way, but one of the key parts of what Daniel Hertz does is we invite musicians to come to our place and play. We record them and play it back. And we check, is the sound coming from the speakers like what they played? Because if it isn't, I don't want to sell it, No. It has to really, and they have to agree. They say, yep, that's my sound, that's me. And that faithfulness is fundamental to what my company is doing. Now, if our technology helps other companies to do that, or the industry be aware of it or something, that's fine. My purpose right here is to develop the technology and build the products that make a statement. Here is something you can touch, feel, listen to, maybe buy, make it real. And that validates the brand, it validates the technology and makes it real. But it's one thing to do that with a product, and it's another thing to do that with a technology. For example, the industry is used to things like, okay, we have a category, preamplifiers. This is one, this is another one, this is another one. Or we have DACs. Here's one, here's one, here's one, and so forth. But when it comes to C-Wave, we're talking about a technology. It's a whole other thing. It's not a thing. It's intellectual property. You can't actually touch it. It's an algorithm.
Yeah.
But what it stands for is way beyond a product. It's how we experience the recording.
Can I get into that?
Please.
When you came to a few days ago and we installed it, etc., we listened to tracks everybody knows. You have there a chestnut, is that how you call it?
Chestnut.
Yeah, chestnut. So that's something everybody knows. And I listen to songs I can dream. Really dream. And sometimes I think to myself, not again. And one of those songs was, I think, how is that possible? I heard it over 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. And it was new for me. And it was just from Cobus, listening to it, and it was a completely new experience. And you also showed me what it does with YouTube. Ordinary files.
Right.
And it sounded like master tape niveau.
Right. I'm glad to hear what you just said about Cobus, actually, because I just found out about that recently. Music streaming through Cobus and a Maria, that was a surprise to me. I never expected to get that from streaming. I mean, great results, okay, but Cobus and a Maria, that's really a surprise to me. That I was thinking to myself, but this is familiar to me. What is it? And then I realized, this is how I used to feel when we recorded 30 IPS analog tape and we played it back. You know, I mean, recording the musicians and playing it back, and that was that kind of a feeling. So what? How is that possible from streaming?
And maybe that was my experience as well, because you know some, or you think you know something,
right,
quite well, and then you are like getting airplugs out of your ears, and you hear a completely new level of music. So
now the interesting question is it that we're hearing something completely new, which may be, or is our brain suddenly able to respond in a different way to what we're hearing?
Yeah, and
so they're both there. They're both there.
Chicken and egg question.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's partly both.
Yeah.
You know, but I think they're part of the same thing. It's part of wanting to make it better. However you can make it better. And when you add up all those improvements, it turns into something really big.
Yeah.
You know?
Because talking about the system, can you a little bit tell about what we see here? We see here the Maria. There's an integrated amplifier with the C-Wave technology inside. And we have the Chiara loudspeakers.
Right.
So tell our audience a little bit about the product and the design philosophy about it.
Well, first, I decided I just want to make one amplifier. I would like to make one amplifier that's the best I know how. Now, that doesn't mean other people will agree. It's just, for me, this is like a musical instrument maker. This is the best guitar I know how to make, that's all. It's just what I can do. And because if it's not the best I can do, why should I make it? And if it is the best, why do I need to make another one?
Yeah.
But I decided to make it in a 2-channel version and a 4-channel version. So if people would like to go to a biamplified speaker, they can do it easily. An elegant, easy solution. But it's the same technology and the same specifications, just 2-channel and 4-channel. And I wanted to make an amplifier that is friendly, that drives any good speaker, that accepts any source, that basically an amplifier that says, yes, I would like to do this, yes, and that, yes, no, whatever. So it's sort of like that. And so it has 3 analog inputs, but they're not just analog, they're 1 megohm analog, which means they don't load the analog source. If it's a phono stage or a cassette deck or an open reel deck or a tuner or whatever, it gets the best possible sound from an analog source. USB, coax, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. So it's easy. Even though it's compact and lightweight, it's extremely powerful. It's rated at 350 watts a channel into 8, 500 into 4. But we're very conservative with ratings, so it's really much more, it's way over 400 into 8 and over 700 into 4. It's very powerful enough to drive any speaker.
I've heard it, so don't convince me.
Well, but to say, you know, it's important because who knows what your needs might be. And another thing, I wanted to build in a headphone amp because some people love headphones. So we built in a separate 9 watt per channel headphone amplifier, which is second to none, that can drive any headphone. It's also C-Wave enabled. But there's another feature which is very important. First of all, the core of Maria is the Mighty Cat chip.
Yep.
And the Mighty Cat chip is a new kind of semiconductor. It uses Class D as a concept, but it's totally different from any Class D amplifier out there. It's like a V8. You can have a Ford V8 or a Ferrari V8, but they're very different, but just it's the V8 concept.
Yeah.
So this is using a Class D concept, but it's totally different. It's extremely elegant. We don't need a separate DAC. It does a digital to analog conversion and provides all the functions of a preamp and active crossovers and so forth in one chip.
Yeah, and to be clear, everyone can use the same digital formats existing. So it's not that C-Wave or Mighty Cat need different formats. No, it can play every existing.
Sure. Mighty Cat is a semiconductor with internal architecture that can run C-Wave. There's no other chip that can run C-Wave. But that embedded software includes a lot of other tools, like time alignment for aligning a tweeter and a woofer, for example, or tuning capabilities, active crossovers, all kind of things. And one of the exciting things about Maria is it introduces a new idea, which is mastering hardware. Most people know what mastering is, right? It's the last stage of making a recording, where the mastering engineer makes the piano sound like the piano and a voice and the best quality possible and the cymbals and so forth. That's mastering. And I'm a mastering engineer, and I thought, maybe we can make audio equipment sound better if we could master it, fine-tune it. So we put those tools inside Maria. So every Daniel Hertz speaker has a tuning for that speaker. And we can also provide tunings for other speakers from other manufacturers if needed. But the idea of making those fine adjustments has never been possible before. People buy cables or do various things to try to, this is a way of looking, this is real engineering, right? We're looking at the frequency response of speakers, for example, or the way that, the kind of sonic signature that the system develops. And saying, well, maybe this, Dick Berwin said it very well. Dick Berwin is now 96, and he's been my mentor since I was 26 years old. And he said, in the recording and playback process, there are many stages, many steps. And if each one introduces 0.1 dB error or 0.2 dB error, they add up. And pretty soon you've got 5 dB here and 3 dB there, and you can really hear this stuff. It adds up, right? So the tuning capability that's in Maria can be very useful And it doesn't cost anything, it's built in. C-Wave is part of it. Speaker tuning, headphone tuning, another part of it. Active crossovers are key for biamplified systems. One thing I really enjoy is that Maria is a single chassis that can enable a biamplified system.
Yep.
Now in the past, you needed a big rack, right? You'd have a DAC and a preamp and active crossovers and monoblock amplifiers and a sea of cables and all this stuff. Now it's one single chassis, 2 speakers, done.
Yeah, and these are active speakers, huh?
Well, they're biamplified.
Yeah.
Chiaras are biamplified. Chiara, you know, originally I wasn't going to make it because it doesn't look like it sounds, right? It doesn't, you look at it and you think, what's that going to sound like, right? What is that? But then I realized it has to look like that, to sound like that. If it didn't look like that, it wouldn't sound like that. You know, it's like together. And I realized that this was maybe a kind of breakthrough because it's on one side, it's compact and fits in normal apartments and homes. It's easy to have in your life. It's not a big refrigerator, right?
No.
It's elegant and compact and beautiful and simple. But on the other hand, what it does, I've never heard anything do. It delivers this kind of resolution and detail and space and air, and at the same time, extremely deep articulate bass with tremendous dynamic range and all these things you can't find in one system, and especially not one that's compact and that it is so easy to fit into somebody's life. And so I decided that Daniel Hertz would have a full range speaker, which is called Amber.
Yep.
We have a compact speaker called Ava, the little guy. But we have a floor standing speaker called Amber. And then we have 3 biamplified speakers. The M1 is the flagship and the M4 is a little bit smaller than the M1, but Chiara is this compact speaker that has all this magic. I mean, I call it the ugly duckling.
Yeah.
You know, the children's fable of the ducks. And one of them didn't look good. It's that's an ugly duck. It turned out to be a swan. You know, so first people look at it and go, what the hell is that? And then they listen to it and they fall in love with it, you know.
Yeah, we can say we have listened the last few days. And okay, it's like talking to your mouth, but I can honestly say, without any, well, it sounds very surprisingly good and more than good, I have to say. And especially because of the size. And if you hear orchestras, big, small, pop, rock, heavy metal, your favorite music, it's like you are in the middle and it's reproducing it. So I can say that the idea you had and what you just told us, I think it does it. I think that's what I think what it does. It reproduces music, not sound. It reproduces emotion. And what surprised me as well is that even simple YouTube movies sounds better. And of course we want to know what your holy grail is, and I know you won't tell us, but I have to applaud what you achieved with this system.
Well, I'll tell you anything. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not hiding anything.
No.
I mean, you know, the semiconductor is right there. It is what it is. The algorithm, we've described what it is more or less in the patent. I mean, we're not. There's no smoke and mirrors here. No. It's full disclosure. I think one of the key points to Chiara is the detail. For example, we're talking now. Now, let's say I make a sound like this. right? Those sounds exist in live performance of music. Fingers on the strings, lips on the mouthpiece, on the keys, whatever. Yeah, just sounds, right? But they're clues. They tell you that it's real, okay? And those details, those clues don't really come out in most audio systems. You hear sound, but you don't have those little details that tell you that it's alive, right? Yeah. And one of the reasons is that the tweeter, this AST tweeter we use, and the woofer we use, they're handmade by friends of mine. They're artisan made. They're made by people as crazy as we are. They're not industrial parts. There's no catalog. They're just artisan made to do that. They're made to do that. And actually, and so the whole thing, the whole system is sort of made with that spirit. And when you biamplify, you eliminate passive crossovers. There's no inductors, capacitors, resistors, and parts. They're just not there. It's amplifier direct to the drivers, right? And we made a version of this with the passive crossover to see how it worked. And it was just, we lost too much. And you know, it was a pity. It was, what, we're gonna ask people to buy that? No. So we decided, yeah, it's more expensive, but just do it right. And when you do it right, that's when you get all that detail. And so I'm trying to explain, it's not a secret. It's just engineering. It's eliminating parts that color the sound. It's, you know, just eliminating sources of coloration, using C waves so there's no digital sound, there's no stress in the brain. And for example, by having one chip, what happens? Well, normally you have all these separate chassis with separate power supplies, output stages, input stages, cables all over the place, ground loops, whatever. There's just hundreds of sources of degradation. They're gone with this, they're not there. It's just this elegant signal through path, right? And so there are real reasons why it sounds like this. It's not, it's not smoke and mirrors. It's just eliminating sources of degradation, let's say. Plus, the native resolution of the chip is 384K. So right off the, I mean, some people pay 25,000 euros for a DAC that's 384K, right? So I mean, it's like...
Yeah, what we just talked before, that it performs on a very high level.
Yep. So I just want to say that there's a place for many good products. It's not about just trying to say, you know, you should buy this or you should buy that. But we're an engineering company. And what we're doing is developing new technology and using this new technology at the highest level that we can to make audio products and also to make them beautiful, you know, and works of art, if you will. By the way, almost all of our parts are made by small family-owned companies in Italy, in the Venice area. You know, we know them personally, we work with them. This is a very artisanal product. And by the way, that's another problem. We can't make enough. We have to limit our distribution. Yep. Because there's no way that we can make more than a certain quantity of products a month. And that's, so I hope people understand, if people have to wait for a month or two or whatever, I apologize for that. But we just have to limit our production to a certain number per month, otherwise it won't be the same product.
No,
you know?
The same quality. And I want to say something final about my experience listening to it. Often you say, okay, it seems like the singer or the band is in your room. Yeah. In this case, you are at the performance there. So good is this system. It can bring you there. It's not in your place, but in their place. You experience everything, the highs. We listened to an orchestra and it was sitting there in front, second row, and that's a new experience, and I think a lot of people, if they have the chance to listen to it, that they will agree with that. So again, I want to applaud for your work and for what you did, and I'm grateful that you give me the chance to give the people in the Benelux a chance to go to their dealers and listen to your Daniel Hertz products, because it deserves a very good place in a living room or a listening room, so people can enjoy again with no stress, really good music.
Well, we're grateful to you for your support and for bringing Daniel Hertz to Benelux, and we want people to know that we really appreciate their interest and we're here to help. Your company and mine are like a team, and we work with the stores, again, as like a family to help people, to take care of people. We welcome questions and an opportunity to have discussions, and we're super happy to have this great beginning, thanks to you.
Well, and thanks to you, because otherwise we didn't have it. So thank you, and maybe with the next interview with new introductions we can talk again.
Thank you. Thanks, Cor.